Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon, and I am absolutely delighted to be here today with Alex Zhavoronkov, who is the CEO of Insilico Medicine and Deep Longevity. It is an incredible time in the era of medicine science and technology because people like Alex, who are visionaries, are able to pull together resources to not only create more efficient systems and more productive systems, which is embedded in technologies like AI, but they really are step change in terms of the novel and creative ways to use technologies to find ways to improve the entire drug discovery and drug development process to create incredible therapies that without this technology, we would not be able to envision. I can't stress how important this is. And as part of this journey, it is my real privilege to bring to you somebody who has incredible leadership skills, who knows how to enroll people within his company, build collaboration and partnerships, and drive the next chapter of healthcare in drug discovery and drug development, including what we consider probably collectively the next incredible chapter in medicine, which is longevity and aging. Let me now introduce you to Alex Zhavoronkov, who will tell you a little bit about himself. His career is quite incredible, but more importantly, what he's doing for the patients is truly noteworthy. And I want to bring a sense of awareness to the BetterHealth community, who I want to thank very much for allowing us to achieve a great milestone this past month, which is 1.17 million views. We look at the BetterHealth platform as an open source way to build leadership, collaboration, and partnerships in an era where those skill sets can be learned and improved and are necessary from our perspective to be able to drive sustainable growth and to bring products to patients through the commercial pathway. I want to take just a minute to thank everybody who is in the audience today. And it's an incredible list. I think that we want to make sure that we recognize people who are contributing consistently. People like Jenny Fernandez, who is an incredible part of our system. Chad from Dallas. Musa, thank you so much for joining in. Without your support and without the people signing in and asking us questions, we would not be able to advance this open source platform. I'm thrilled to also announce an incredible new partnership that is going to lead the BetterHealth platform to what we call the Iconic Series, which will be part of the New York Stock Exchange program in the winter of 2024 as a way to emphasize the incredible achievements and the incredible iconic venues that support systems and organizations that want to partner with you as emerging entrepreneur CEO founders. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Alex. Alex, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Very happy to be with you today, and thanks for organizing BetterHealth and achieving such a significant milestone. 1.1 million views. It's not small. I know, because especially if you are doing the work in biotech and AI, even though we are kind of at the peak of the generative AI hype, I think that whenever it's applied to healthcare, the level of interest dies, unfortunately, even though it's are probably most important frontier. People are more interested in chatbots, video games, and luxury goods. But it's very, very important to steer people's attention to healthcare and the advances of AI. So happy to be with you. By the way of introduction, so Alex Zhavoronkov, I'm the founder and CEO of Insilico Medicine. I also founded Deep Longevity, which is now part of another company which acquired it called Region Pacific. It's publicly traded in Hong Kong, and I serve as an advisor to the company. But my kind of full-time job, 150 to 200% of time, is with Insilico, and it's a truly global company. Right now, I'm presenting out of our site in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, where we have a significant presence. But we span the entire globe. We value the globalized nature of healthcare drug discovery. I think that drug discovery in general, it's like a huge molecular roulette. It's like a molecular casino, which involves very substantial risk and very substantial return, not only financial, but also in the form of health dividends that are propagating into everybody's health span. And we are leading a global effort utilizing generative AI to discover new therapeutic targets, generate small molecules with the desired properties, and then take it all the way into human clinical trials. So far, we have several clinical trials in humans out of generative after performing all the preclinical validation and IND-enabling studies. Several of those programs have novel targets, which means that the probability of success usually even to get to human clinical trials is very, very low. So we've done that several times already and are very hopeful to see some of those programs on the market. Hopefully, it's going to take a few years, but we're very deeply committed. I am very deeply committed. And we're also working very heavily in aging research and utilizing aging research as a platform for drug discovery. Because at the end of the day, we all die, we all lose function with time. And if you compare a 20-year-old patient with 75-year-old patient, very often even the outcome measures that you would be looking at are very different. And they have most of the time different time to live, right? So we need to ensure that AI systems understand the basic biology of aging, and we understand how aging becomes disease and how to treat patient types of diseases. So we actually are trying to utilize aging research as a very credible platform for drug discovery instead of just trying to claim that we are going to cure aging itself, even though that's the ultimate goal, I think, for humanity in general, because at the end of the day, you can buy anything you like, but you cannot buy time and more life. Once the time is up, that's it. The game is over. So we want to ensure that you can continue playing a little bit longer or a lot longer.
That is the Holy Grail.
That's the idea. And I hope that more people in your audience will join the effort and realize that aging research is more valuable than just supplements or exercise or diet and sleep, even though all of those are important. However, we need to push the boundaries and identify actionable interventions that treat aging and disease at the same time.
I want to take a second just to emphasize the courageousness of the things that you just said, because there is a very stark difference between taking concepts and exploring them at the university, which I applaud. I am on faculty in a number of different prominent institutions. But then taking it into a commercial and commercially viable track is a whole different level of risk. I want to emphasize the fact that what you have done is build a sustainable platform of growth based upon what I see as really unique leadership skills, the ability to tell your story to investors, to fellow colleagues, to employees, to other businesses on an international basis with authenticity, trust, which leads to taking more risk and being able to do things in a structured way that allows you to unlock value for Insilico Medicine, which then is a momentum generating flywheel to allow you to do other things with other opportunities, such as deep longevity. And looking forward 5, 10 years into the way the world is going to be is very much like Wayne Gretzky saying, good players skate where the puck is. Great players skate to where the puck is going. And so if we're looking 5, 10 years out, that is, I think, an appropriate story to tell CEO entrepreneurs. So I would like very much if you could talk to some of these CEO founder entrepreneurs right now, if you could tell them a bit about your decision-making process or something that was a pivot point for you in your growing Insilico Medicine, I would love to explore that.
So sure, our decision-making process is usually kind of an yin-yang of taking a lot of risk and at the same time having potential high returns and something that is much more traditional and understandable and credible, right? Because if you are going to always bet on exponential technologies that might not yet have the proof of concept, you might lose everything. As a matter of fact, if you are betting on companies in longevity biotechnology, I usually advise people to exercise extreme caution because, to my knowledge, there has not been a single success yet, right? At least if you are not talking about the supplement market or some wearables that make you run, exercise, and sleep and diet. And even those apps, I don't see dramatic successes unless you're part of Apple and Google nowadays or some other big hyperscalers. So it's very, very difficult to make money in this business consistently, especially if you don't have already ready product. So regardless of how much money you raise from the very beginning, if you fail to develop this sustainable business model, which again has an yin-yang component to it, so high risk, high return, plus some more traditional approach that people understand and buy into, you won't be able to sustain for a very long time. So our decision-making process is as follows. So we have actually two CEOs at Insilico. So I am the CEO that actually takes a lot of risk in artificial intelligence, in other exponential technologies and robotics. And I try to push the boundaries for where the puck is going. So we are actually sometimes trying to reinvent the puck. But I also have another CEO, Dr. Ran Feng, who PhD from Harvard, 11 years at GSK, and then he ran a large contract research organization that provided services to many, many pharmaceutical companies before, with thousands of people reporting to him over time. And his part is to utilize AI to very rapidly discover, develop, and also commercialize therapeutic interventions in a variety of diseases. Novel target, novel molecule, something that we can sell. So it's essentially kind of adult supervision and a little bit more traditional conservative business model where we bake the cookies and sell the cookies, right? So we basically invest in a variety of therapeutic programs that have a very certain risk-return profile, where we try to identify the ultimate balance between novelty, confidence, and commercial tractability. And sometimes we choose those programs that are more commercially tractable than anything else to ensure that there is a very good balance. And sometimes we go for ultra high novelty therapeutic targets and small molecules in order to demonstrate that the technology has matured even further. And now we have very high confidence that even those novel therapeutic assets are going to work. And at the same time, what I'm doing, I'm trying to utilize the really, really latest advances in technology and apply them to the many areas of the pharmaceutical drug discovery and development, including aging research. I think that you should look at aging research as a technology, as a platform for improving your other side of business, right? Which is driving a more conservative, which is driven by a more conservative, even person, right? Scientist. So our decision-making process is that I can take a lot of risk, go after a high return, but I also manage a much smaller part now of the company resources. So if we screw up, it's not deadly. And Dr. Ren is managing a portfolio of therapeutics with established risk and return profile that for some of them are made for sale. So at certain stage, right? So we know to a certain degree that they are going to be, those therapeutic programs are going to be in demand by the pharmaceutical companies. And some of the programs, we know that the pharmaceutical companies would not be ready to believe in certain type of biology unless we demonstrate the efficacy and proof of concept in phase 2. So we want to demonstrate a few of these. And of course, when you sell a program like that, it generates very substantial return. As a matter of fact, if you like, I can show you a couple of slides to demonstrate where we are, kind of to do a time check on where we are in therapeutic drug discovery and development. And I'm going to pull up the presentation. So let me just show you some notable achievements, case studies where generative AI managed to accomplish something faster with higher probability of success. So usually in the pharmaceutical world, if you are going after a novel target, it may take you 3, 4, 5 years to get to even lead stage, right? So you got to discovery chemistry, you get some hits, but usually to get to the next level, what is called preclinical candidate, that's one step before clinical step, right? Sometimes in the academic world, discovering a novel target and validating to some extent, it may take you 5 years, sometimes a decade. In pharma, where you take a more kind of conservative approach, it might take more high confidence target might take actually faster, and in 4 or 5 years you'll be able to be at hit stage. So we demonstrated that from 0 to preclinical candidate, the longest time it takes us now is about 18 months. So it's pretty dramatic. And actually the average now, that's the longest. The average now is about 1 year, 1 year, 2 months from 0 to preclinical candidate for targets that are of moderate novelty. And we nominated 9 preclinical candidates in 2022. To put you in perspective, usually big pharmaceutical companies, they nominate 4 to 5 using their own internal R&D and in small molecule space, right? So if you account for biologics, it's going to be more. and other kind of combination therapies, etc. But if you're looking at raw number of small molecule preclinical candidates, so one notch behind clinical, it's usually lower than the number of hours. And we managed to go with one of the programs from zero, so from new target in fibrosis, all the way to phase 0 human clinical trials, so small number of patients, and then completed phase 1 human clinical trials to go on to phase 2 human clinical trials in both China and in the US, so 2 parallel. In between, we conducted many dozens of preclinical experiments in cells and mice and dogs and rats and many other models. And we've managed to demonstrate that we can build a pipeline of therapeutic programs where some of those programs become pretty commercially viable. So, for example, our first partnership where we out-licensed an asset, and here we out-licensed 50% QPCTL in immuno-oncology, that was at lead stage. And recently we announced another partnership where we out-licensed USP1, a super hot, highly promising target in synthetic lethality that's combined very well with several other therapies. So we developed really amazing chemistry for it using generative chemistry system and out-licensed it to Exelixis, a wonderful, phenomenal cancer company that I think is one of the best cancer companies in the world, very expert at medicinal chemistry. And we got 80 million upfront and milestones and royalties. So it shows you that those are commercially viable programs. And right now, many pharma companies are much more convinced that AI works in, and actually also aging research works in as a platform for drug discovery and development. Before, it was very difficult to convince, right? And the best way to overcome those objections is actually to produce valuable therapeutics using AI yourself, and then partner as a biotech on assets, basically selling those assets, instead of just trying to give them AI or collaborate or do pilots. We really almost died when we were doing pilots because those pilots, when they are successful, the pharmaceutical company often decides actually not to proceed with further development, right? They either do it themselves or management changes and something happens, right? So we think that to transform the pharmaceutical world, you need to start partnering at earlier stages, but not too early, right? So usually pharmaceutical companies like to partner late at phase 2. So after the human efficacy is established, usually it's like 7 or 8 or even like a decade after the biotechnology company identified the target and started working on it. So those programs, sometimes they take a decade, right? And at that time, there is scarcity of supply. So there are very few good phase 2 assets that kind of survive to that time when they're licensable. And those partnerships are very expensive. So recently we saw Nimbus Therapeutics licensing their TYK2 molecule after phase 2 to Takeda with $4 billion upfront, $6 billion total deal. So those are very expensive partnerships. But if you are partnering at the early stages, at let's say strategic collaboration where you're partnering around the target that big pharma company selected, sometimes I haven't seen any partnership like that with an AI company that reached, let's say, phase 2. So just on my watch, I have not seen that happening. And usually they are very cheap, but they fail very easily. And there are 3 partnership alternatives that we are pursuing, right? But also that's kind of the general, what the industry is doing. So we have the software on the market. It's very easy to partner, fast and low impact. Then you can do strategic collaborations with pharma. It's going to be very difficult to establish, right? So usually you need to convince a lot of people for them to give you the budget. And usually there is a lot of, remember this kind of phrase, there is a lot of stakeholders, but very few budget holders. and you need to convince a lot of people, but then it's actually very difficult to get the budget. If you can, and if you do that, later you can succeed, but then at some point in time, the pharma company will change strategic direction, and this partnership may get deprioritized. And we actually, in our early days, we have been through those kind of circles, and you actually need to understand how pharma works. So the best way to partner, in my opinion, is to get the drug candidates ready to be out licensed and partnered, and then it's moderately difficult to partner. So the pharmaceutical company reviews the asset. It is time consuming, but it's very high probability of success, right? So when they pay you several tens of millions of dollars at preclinical candidate stage or within IND enabling, so just before human clinical trials start, and they pick up human clinical trials, in my opinion, that's the best way to partner with the pharmaceutical companies, because the pharmaceutical company wins, right? They don't pay too much. No, it's not 6 billion, right? They are also expert on human clinical trials, so they can leverage their capabilities in that area. And they can also combine with their own current drugs to increase the probability of success, benefit to the patient. And there is much lower chance of strategic kind of direction shift when the CEO or CSO changes. And here is what I kind of outlined. Those are like forward looking, so please don't kind of share it anywhere. So internal assumptions based on what we believe are the probabilities of success with AI. So here you can start from when you start from the target discovery and the project initiation. Sometimes using traditional approach, it can take you a decade, right? And 1 to 5% probability of success. We even saw some of the recent partnerships where an AI company and a pharma company partner on target discovery, and then only, let's say, 3.5, 4 years, 5 years later, they talk about the target that they discovered, but they are only here, right? So yes, it might cut some time, but we don't know about the probability of success, but it's definitely costly and lengthy. But if you do it yourself very quickly, and then go to, let's say, preclinical candidate stage, right? So, and you complete that, usually the probability of success using traditional models is like 69%, right? So you fail 30% of the time here in this area. And we think that our approach probably is a higher probability. So I'm talking about our current pipeline where we didn't fail so much, right? But we only have a few programs. It requires to have, we probably need hundreds of those programs to develop the statistics. Here, if you partner at GLP tox level, the probability of success, in my opinion, going to approval is much higher than the industry standard of 10%. So we currently don't know, but so far I have not failed in phase 1, right? So we really hope that that trend continues, right? So again, this is based on current pipeline, and I think that traditional pharma partnering approach is as follows. So they like to partner on platform, either here at Target ID, they believe in the platform, or they believe in a chemistry or a Target ID platform or in a chemistry platform. And usually those are cheaper, but almost always fail. I have not seen many successes or any successes. And also another way they like to partner is after phase 2 is complete, but it's very competitive and too expensive. So I actually think that the best way to partner with pharma, actually not only in our AI-powered drug discovery, but in general, is just before the clinical trials in humans start. So you are essentially what is called IND ready with a molecule. And understanding this, so what I just showed you is actually very valuable. We can probably stop sharing. Is actually very valuable. If somebody were to explain this to me when I just started the company, I could I could save a lot of time and money, right? Because if you are starting in this field as an AI-powered biotech, if you think that you are better than pharma, or you think that your algorithm really changes the game, what you want to do is you want to raise as much money as you can and try to, within 2-3 years, try to get into the sweet spot of preclinical candidate um, to IND enabling. So, and then you can actually show investors that, wow, I'm actually in IND enabling after 2 years, and I have multiple shots on goal. So now either give me more money and I'll do the phase one, or let's partner, right? And it's actually a good idea to partner a few of those out to battle test your assets, because how do you know that your quality is good? Like, why do you think that the quality of your molecule is acceptable? So it's better to do a few of those kind of PhD defenses in front of big pharma, explaining, or medium type pharma. So people who are willing to pay you tens of millions of dollars upfront, and then substantial downstreams and milestones and royalties in order to acquire your asset. So they won't acquire a poor quality asset, right? They want high quality stuff that they can bet on, and then invest hundreds of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to put it through clinical trials and then on the market. And they are partnering with you just to save time, right? Because you are usually 3, 4, 5 years ahead of them. And your patent life is shorter. So if you do that, then you, in my opinion, you're a good AI company. And unfortunately, what usually happens is that somebody starts, some venture fund starts an AI drug discovery company, just betting on the trend, brings a few scientists together, invests and asks their friends to invest. Then usually, depends on how it works, but usually those big names start fighting with each other and some leave. They have disagreements. It's not an organically grown team. They're not exactly committed to the mission. Or even if they are, you will see that those technologies take much longer to develop in order to become practical. And many of them require to fundraise again and again and again on a beautiful story, but then where are the drugs, right? And to avoid that, I think that it's very important to start with something that already works. So maybe not after not from academia, but companies that demonstrated the ability to generate high quality assets, or why not partner with Insilico, right? And we could build a portfolio for you. That's another way we can collaborate. We did not do many of those, but we're open. And of course, if you already have a working system somewhere else, that's another good place to invest, right? But again, lots of money. Instead of trying to get those big pharma partnerships around the platform that very often fail, it's a good idea to actually try to deliver something, right? Deliver that asset that they are trying to create using your own capabilities, and then license it out. And that improves the pharmaceutical productivity, because pharma is, I wouldn't call it broken because it never worked, right? But it's very inefficient beast. You have 50 drug approvals annually by the FDA, and only a small fraction of those are truly innovative. So you need to figure out how to change that, how to increase the number of those approved drugs. And the best way to do that is increase the number of bets that have already been de-risked at the molecular level and the target level. And my recommendation to everybody who is looking to work in our field is you need to first deliver something tangible that you can sell, not just looking for platform level partnership.
An incredible overview. I personally have done 6 startups, and like you, I wish I had somebody to give me the big picture instead of me having to climb mountains by myself. What I would say is for me to encapsulate some of this. For me, it's a message that you have taken painstaking steps to understand how things really work in industry. My recommendation for CEO, entrepreneur, founders is be humble with your technology. Understand that technology is a tool, an incredible tool, when coupled with an incredible team. The ability to use the technology to drive data, as you are talking about, Alex, instills trust and confidence and goes to one of the key things that you were talking about is understanding the needs of industry. And for them, it's about de-risking the relationship. This ability to understand risk, which is what you really underscored from the beginning of the conversation with both you and your partner, we could have endless conversations about that. And I would love to invite you back for further discussions, because one of the things that's important for young CEO, entrepreneur, founders to understand is you have to take risk. You should take risk. You should take a substantial amount of risk, but measured risk. And understand that the risk has to be seen not only from your internal perspective, but externally from investors and from industry partners' perspectives. So understanding what is feasible, what the normal course of affairs are within an industry and how things go through their pipeline, as Alex, you just articulated incredibly well, goes a long way to show industry that you understand what can be done and have reasonable expectations. For me, as an investor and as also a group who believes in education and building communication and leadership tracks, we are looking for novel ways to support entrepreneurs and great leaders like yourself and Insilico Medicine. So we are actually looking at novel ways of financing to create more effective ways to communicate and open up de-risked possibilities for industry. So we would be looking, for example, at financing steps that normally venture did not enter into, to de-risk the gap between preclinical and clinical with unique terms that offer us as investors more upside, but we're willing to take more risk when we find CEO leaders like yourself. I underscore this because for all of the people out there that have great technology, it's about the confidence that you can instill. And it's about your leadership as seen by investors that's willing to take a risk on you. And so what I would say is, first, incredibly thoughtful discussion highlighted by a very important part, which is partnership. Your partner internally in Insilico Medicine, externally with companies like Exelixis, means that you have enrolled people in your shared vision and they see value in that. So I am absolutely thrilled at what I see as just the beginning of a very long growth cycle, changing the shape of the curve within an industry that I agree has historically been broken. Being able not only to speed new drugs to market for patients, but also to create new, novel, in the truest sense, therapeutics that use technology to identify things that perhaps we would not be able to identify without that technology. We did not talk a lot about longevity, and in the couple minutes that are remaining, perhaps if you could outline just a couple of the incredibly, let's say, novel things that you see coming down the road in longevity and in aging medicine, just to really give people, I think, a teaser for your next talk on Better Health, because that really is, again, something that entrepreneurs need to understand. You need to look ahead and you need to prepare for that. So perhaps you could share something. I know you just came off of an incredible conference in Europe about what you see as really groundbreaking.
So what I see in terms of groundbreaking, well, I like technology, right? And I think that the next big wave in technology is going to come from quantum computing. So right now, betting on quantum, at least from the market research perspective, right? Understanding what is what, who is who, and how the different how the industry is going to look like in terms of frameworks and in terms of the layers, right? So what is going to be the hardware layer and who are the winners? What is the application layer and who are the winners? What are the layers in between, and who are the winners? It's very, very important, because I think that while it seems to be very far from today, within the next decade, we're going to see major breakthroughs in quantum and adoption of quantum in communications, in compute, and specifically in generative chemistry. So we've published a couple papers on that. And I think that this technology is going to change chemistry first before anything else, because that's where you actually will benefit from the speed up the most. And then, of course, biology, because you will be able to possibly simulate entire worlds in quantum. That's kind of my future bet, right? So I think that it's possible. Currently, with 50, 100 qubit devices, you have a lot of limitations, but you already see that there is substantial value in that speed up, right? And while you are not outperforming the classical GPUs, the probability that we will see the scalability of those systems, and also the investments that the hyperscalers are likely to make in order to bring this technology to the market, is likely to result in more massive adoption. And again, chemistry and biology are going to be, in my opinion, the first kind of low-hanging fruits. Of course, telecom and encryption, and by extension, finance, so banking, all are going to be benefiting from quantum. So it's very important to go into this area, and also ensure that you are not, breaking any kind of geopolitical barriers, right? Because so that's why it's better not to do it in countries that are very sensitive to those technologies. So very important to formulate your kind of geopolitical vision as well, because nowadays, in my opinion, of course, those fights between different nations are harming the overall global ability to grow. I'm very pro-globalization. I don't know why people are not collaborating, but it's very important to foresee those geopolitical changes and ensure that you do this in regions that are very neutral and friendly. And also, I think robotics is going to be another big thing. So we bet on laboratory automation a couple years ago, and so far so good. So it started delivering really amazing results. So we have fully automated robotics lab that is focused on target discovery and target validation, that allows you to really speed up and improve the process and also generate a lot of high quality data in between. And of course, humanoid robotics, that's something that now we are not betting on ourselves, but just the trend is they are 100%. And if you go to Asia right now, to Singapore, to China, you will see that many startups are betting on humanoids. So it means that it's a trend. So Boston Dynamics showed us the basic primitive capabilities of the humanoid robotic systems. Elon started training those systems on real life data instead of just providing a set of instructions. And there are many, many companies that are doing something in between or going both directions. So most likely the future is going to be very bright. So it's very important to be very optimistic. And that's why sometimes it's worthwhile taking some risks in areas where you're going to provide maximal global benefit, because the future is just, unless we go into some dramatic war, it's going to be very bright. So there will be robots to pick you up, so to speak, going forward, even if you go down. And I think that it's very, very important to focus on those two technologies right now. I think that organ engineering and tissue engineering are likely to advance as well, pretty dramatically, first for drug discovery and then hopefully for organ replacement. And sometimes it's better to replace rather than regenerate, right? Because some biological systems are just not evolved to for rejuvenation purposes. So once extracellular matrix is mineralized, you've got crystals everywhere. It's difficult to even deliver a cells or a gene therapy or a small molecule product to fix it. So sometimes it's better to replace. And I think that massive investments that are going into this area are also going to pay off. So if I were a young graduate student going into the industry, that's where I would go. Or start my own startup around organ engineering, and either you grow them in vivo in an animal, or ex vivo, or even go into something that is human-like but not human.
It's just such a great vision of the future and a harbinger of things to come. It almost sounds like an industrial revolution kind of feel, where there is such a dramatic shift in the need of people to drive into that sector. And I think great advice. It's been an incredible pleasure talking with you, Alex. I want to shout out again a big thank you to everyone who is logged in today from really across the globe. Thank you for supporting the BetterHealth series, and please continue to support us as we expand out. If you follow us on LinkedIn at Endeavor Venture Fund, you'll get the new news and updates about the series that I mentioned earlier. We're super excited about the things that we're doing in 2024, and with your support and with incredible leaders like Alex, we also think that the next many years is going to be an incredibly exciting opportunity for young entrepreneurs in healthcare and life sciences. So thank you again, Alex. It's been a real pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me. Hope to be back.
Anytime. There's so much to talk about. If you stay for a moment, I'm just going to sign off here. Thank you, everyone, for signing in.